Alphonsus Capone was born on January 17, 1899 in Brooklyn, New York, to an immigrant family. Though he was a bright student, Capone dropped out of school in the 6th grade and began to associate himself with several youth gangs. One time, Capone worked for a man who owned a bar in Brooklyn and got into a fight with a customer and received his infamous scars that would give him the nickname Scarface. In December 1918, Capone married May Coughlin, and his son, Albert Sonny Francis Capone, was born. By 1920, he joined Johnny Torrio, a member of a Chicago outfit, and by 1925, Capone would be the boss, after Torrio was seriously injured in an assassination attempt. From that point, Capone built up a fearsome reputation by knocking off other rival gangs. He made at least $100 million a year by running speakeasies, bookie joints, brothels, horse tracks, breweries, distillers, and other businesses. Though Capone's known for his violent acts, he was the first to open a soup kitchen after the stock market crash and provided food and clothing for the needy. Attempts on Capone's life never succeeded because he had a huge spy network that would even include members of the police. When someone did attempt to take his life, he would order a few of his men to rent an apartment across from the guy's house, and the moment he stepped out of his house, he would be shot down. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1929 is one of Capone's most famous moments. 4 of Capone's men entered the North Side Gang's headquarters dressed as the police. The rival gang's members proceeded in putting their hands on the wall. At this point, Capone's men brought out 2 shotguns and 2 machine guns, firing 150 bullets at the unarmed men and killing 6 members of the gang and another individual. Capone was never charged for this killing because he had an alibi. Capone had become Chicago's public enemy number 1. When Capone was finally arrested, it wasn't for any of the murders he had committed, but instead for breaking the Sullivan Act, which stated that even illegal income could be taxed. In 1931, he was indicted for tax evasion and was sentenced to 10 years in a federal prison. In the Atlanta federal prison, which was supposedly the toughest federal prison, Capone managed to manipulate the guards to gain special privileges, including having the floor of his cell carpeted and having a radio. Capone was then moved to the famous prison on Alcatraz Island. His stay here would be much tougher. He couldn't manipulate the guards, was in a few brawls with other inmates, and spent a week in isolation. While serving time at Alcatraz, Capone began giving signs of syphilitic dementia, and spent the rest of his sentence in a hospital, and was transferred to Terminal Island to finish a 1-year misdemeanor sentence. Upon being released from prison, Capone retired to a peaceful and quiet life. But his body and mind began to deteriorate. On January 21st, 1947, Capone suffered a stroke. He regained consciousness a few days later and showed signs of improvement, but pneumonia began to set in. Al Capone died on January 24th, 1947. He was buried next to his father and brother in the Mount Olivet Cemetery in Chicago. In 1950, his body was moved to another one on the west side of Chicago.